Compost. It's so misunderstood. It's been ignored, blamed, and quietly banished to the far corner of the yard. Yet compost keeps working anyway, taking our scraps, our weeds, our gardening mistakes, even items that we probably should have cleaned out of the fridge last month. It takes all these things and it turns them into something useful. Compost is easy to overlook, and paradoxically, it's easy to overthink. So, we're going to simplify it and celebrate it. The compost pile today on the Garden Mixer.
She's Leslie Harris. I'm Marianne Wilburn, and you're listening to The Garden Mixer. And Leslie has done nothing but celebrate compost. I think from the day she started becoming a gardener, she has never, ever ignored it. I had to be shamed into getting a compost pile 20 years ago, 20, maybe more than that, by a friend of mine who said, Marianne, you're a gardener. Why don't you have a compost pile? And I was like, oh, but I live in a small house with a little yard, and there really isn't a space for it to be pretty. And she said, get some pallets, get a compost pile. Just needs to be a pile in the corner of the yard. And so I did. And it wasn't pretty for a long time. And then I made it a little prettier, but it was always making compost.
I mean, friends don't let friends not make compost. Pretty sure that's a thing. All right, what are you drinking?
Ooh, in honor of our episode today, I think we both went to our cocktails book. And so we both have a dirty, very dirty martini.
The title is The Dirtiest. All right, I haven't had any.
Me neither. And this could be fun.
Jesus. That's awful. That's awful.
Oh, whoo, hello.
Ah,
Whoo, hello, Mr.
okay.
Gin and Mr.
So
Vermouth.
you use
and
gin.
Mr.
I have used vodka.
did.
What's wrong here? I love gin.
What are you using, gin?
Yeah, the gin
Yeah.
vermouth and olive juice.
Well, the olive juice, maybe it's just too salty for you. That is, that's a thing. You're going to need to get
All right.
through that.
Luckily, we think of Plan B. Boo, 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 Chardonnay. Cheers.
Oh, you bitch. You didn't tell me that was Plan
La
B.
Crema.
Oh man, she pulls the
You have-
wine out, listeners, and is double fisting it, except for the first fist will not be
Yeah,
getting
I'm
anywhere
not
near her
drinking
mouth.
that other thing.
Well, I've never been a martini drinker ever. I like my gin with a bit of tonic, and
Honestly,
so
I mean, I think it's true to our brand. We are mixers. We are not just straight up man juice. We need the mix, right?
yeah,
Gotta have
I
it.
guess depends
Gotta
on
have
the
a little-
situation. Many is a Saturday night.
No, I'll have a finger of bourbon or rum, but they're sweet by themselves. I can't just go around drinking not sweet things. That's not me.
Well, I will push myself and get through that drink because it is the dirtiest martini. And I love the fact that we both made it. So it's in
We made
honor of the topic.
All right, clear up corner. We have some things. Thing number one, our first episode of the new season was about the AHS, and I was ashamed to admit that I was not in it. But as soon as I got off of that recording, or probably the next day actually, over coffee, I joined. And I'm very happy to have joined. And please look for that episode if you haven't seen it, because since I've joined, I was able to get a lot of screenshots from the magazine since I had access to it. And so it's on YouTube and obviously accessible for you as an audio file.
So here's a question for you, Les. Did you
Yep.
then immediately go into their most visited page, which is all of the list of gardens that you can visit for free?
I didn't think to do that.
With your new membership card, and see what is around you and what you should be visiting with that membership card?
Got to get on that.
Because Rochelle made a really good point with AHS membership. And I was saying, hey, we don't have the 5 flagship gardens that the RHS has. But she said, but we have 400. I'm like, oh, yeah, there's something to be said for that.
Yeah. Well, she
Yeah.
just basically put you in your place, I think, with that comment.
She did.
I also want to talk about, and this is just for One More Sippers. And by the way, if you're not a One More Sip listener, then you missed a couple of fabulous episodes over the course of the winter. One was just about amaryllis. It also had a rendition of the Clash's "Should I Stay or Should I Go?" But you can skip that part if that
Yeah,
offends.
just go through the first 15 seconds.
Yeah, and then you'll be safe. But the amaryllis, we were thinking, hey, if you were to plant that yourself, if you were to buy the bulb and plant it yourself, there's something that made us both think, I think you have to plant it up high in the soil. And we didn't really know why. Turns out you do. And that is the way they grow naturally, both amaryllis and hippeastrum. The RHS says that you should put the top 2/3 of the bulb exposed. That seems extreme to me, and the damn thing would flop over even more easily.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't know that I do that, but I definitely have the top third exposed. I just try and not have it so that where the leaves hit that bulb that there's any soil around that, 'cause he
right,
just
'cause
doesn't wanna be wet and moist and
prone to rotting is the reason. Okay. What else do we have?
yes, a clivia that needs Viagra. Yet another plant. What else do we have? Argutifolius. We had something about Argutifolius, hellebore Argutifolius. I don't know what it was in the last one. You have some random note here, but
It was with Rochelle. It was the last full episode. You brought up, wasn't that your damn, I wish I'd planted that?
well,
Wasn't that
you know what? I don't want to have to do a clear up corner for a clear up corner. Listeners, just for the record, whatever we said about Argutifolius, we were correct in it.
yeah.
All
And the
right.
pronunciation was correct. So we're winning.
All right.
Um,
Winning. All right. So, my two little bits for clear up were that I could not remember the name of the little juniper that I was sent by Isley back
mhm.
in 2013 when I won a gold award. Oh, did I
Oh,
just say that
she's a
again?
master
She's
of the humble brag. But wait, was there
yeah,
you
so
might have
good.
left out the humble part?
Flex. And it wasn't limerick, it was lime glow. And in the interest of journalistic integrity, I went down there this morning to go and find the label, which was there because I label well. But the crazy thing is this thing has grown so much that the label, which is usually 2 or 3 inches in front of a plant, was so deep back into this plant. But completely good. If I just left a little white tag, that'd be long since gone. So yay for labeling and yay for Isley sending me that when I won that gold award. So the other thing that I wanted to say was that I mentioned the dam I wish I planted that somewhere in the episode. And I said, let's talk about the things that we should be planting right now. And that's not what I meant. And that's not what Damn I Wish I Planted That is about. It's about planting the plants that we should be planning for right now in the garden. And I just want to make that clear. We're not planting right now, unless you're in Florida or, nice warm part of Texas. We are planning for. So the Damn I Wish, which comes at the end of this episode, is about 2 plants, one Leslie's, one mine, that we think look great right now. When this episode drops in our Virginia climate, she is in a full zone 7. I am in a 6B approximation of 7 somewhere, it's confusing. But that's for us. And that's what Damn I Wish is all about. All right, I think we've cleared that up.
We've cleared that up, and just a quick reminder that we keep referencing this other thing called One More Sip. We do an in-between smaller podcast. You can find that on Substack and YouTube. So compost, I just love this stuff. It is from the Latin compostum, which means to put something together. And that's what you're doing. You're putting together a better garden if you compost. It's just there are reasons not to compost with kitchen scraps. There are plenty of reasons. But there is really no reason if you're a gardener to not simply put your organic debris not in a garbage bag to go off to the town dump, right? It could be as simple as that.
I am still wondering, did you make that up? Is compostum really a Latin word?
I got it from not ChatGPT.
Tell me you didn't get it from chat.
I didn't get it from
You
chat.
okay.
I mean, I got it from I got it from a dictionary type website. I certainly got it from a website. Sorry.
Very cool, compostum. I, have always, since I was shamed, composted my chicken scraps, my kitchen scraps. I don't like having wet stuff in my garbage cans because what happens in a garbage can? is that you end up with all of these air pockets. And air pockets with smelly garbage and dry garbage end up with big smelly garbage. And that's true not only in your garbage can outside, but on your garbage pail inside. And so it just makes so much sense to me, just on that level of hygiene, not to have them smell. Now, you might think when they are on your sink, they smell just as badly, but they don't when they're all together and you've got the lid tightly on them. Or they might have a little bit, but not really. I mean, it depends on how sensitive.
It's all under your control. First of all, no one says you have to compost kitchen scraps. We hope you do, because that's where the good stuff comes from. But if you do, no one says you have to keep it by your kitchen sink. That's the easiest place to keep it. But certainly no one says that you don't have to empty it every day, if you can stand those smells. I think it's very easy to just get rid of it. I keep it in, what would consider to be a plastic ice cream tub about that big, and it's got a very tight seal on it. And I empty those, I don't know, 2, 3 times a week, depending on how many times I've gone out to dinner. And so when I do, everything is recognizable as exactly what I cut up and put into a salad, or didn't, because it was the ugly part. And it's not beginning to decompose at all. But even just not putting your weeds, your dead plants, your leaves on the street. I mean, just start there. That is the very basis of compost. Forget the potential for fruit flies, because it's there. By the way, have you ever shopped for a compost bin and found there were ones that had like holes in the top? Like, what?
It's funny you say that because I've always had a big bin and it's a big one. It's an old enameled pan, or soup pot, basically, because I find the ones that they sell are ridiculously small. I don't know who composts like that or who eats like that with this tiny little thing. So, but I do have a second sink in my kitchen, which is extremely convenient, but I have another compost pail there, which has just recently fallen apart. So I found one at the Goodwill. That's where I get everything. And it had holes in the top. It was like the little garbage can.
Yeah,
And
I've
it
seen
looks
those.
and they're like $60 or something at the store. So I whipped that up pretty quickly. But it has all these holes in the top.
So wait, why did you buy it if it had holes in the top?
Well, because it was cute and it was just the right size to sit next to that really tiny sink. So I picked it up and then I get it home and I think, oh, it's meant to have, well, see, the thing is it's meant to have a filter, a little foam filter that goes into it, which you
Oh,
then
okay.
wash out. They usually come with that. But I'm not going to go out and start buying stuff for it. That sort of negates the purpose of the thrift store. So I took a page out, literal page out of a hack I have just been given, which is brilliant. And I used newspaper to go up into the little lip of the thing and cover those holes. So on the inside, because there's a lip on the inside. So I just took a scrunched up piece of newspaper and put it up in that space, covered the holes, and it's fantastic. And at the same time, I put a piece of newspaper at the bottom. I folded it in
Oh, I
fours.
have heard that. Now, why
Oh
is that?
my
Because
gosh. I've been doing this for 20 something years. I don't know why I've never thought of this. I've been doing this now for 2 weeks, and it's a game changer because sometimes I'm not real great at getting that compost bin dumped every other day, and it'll sit for 4 or 5 days or 6 days and things get weepy. Well, now I dump it out and that newspaper has not only absorbed all of the liquid, not all of it, a good deal of the liquid. It's also created a barrier from some of the yuckier bits of bread and things that tend to stick to the bottom of the pail. So it's sort of like Teflon. You now I can just pop it out and comes right out. And I was just like, where has this tip been all my life? Now that is a tip and trick. I just threw up a little in my mouth. Worth its salt. That is a serious tip. So for you composters, learn from my mistakes and do that.
tips and tricks
Yeah.
of composting. I think that's a great idea. I tend to do that with a paper towel, but only if I try not to use paper towels. But if I have one in my hand, it goes into my compost bin, and therefore that's more of the carbon and a little less of the nitrogen. Um, when you lived in the tiny garden and you got started with this, did you immediately integrate kitchen scraps, or did you just say, "Okay, well, let's start with weeds"?
Yeah, I did because we had a dish disposal that did go into the county municipal thing, but we had old pipes and not a good grade on that bottom drain pipe. So, I didn't want to fill it with food garbage. And I'd grown up in a house that had composted all of the food scraps, so I already felt like I was doing something wrong. I did it for the same reasons. My parents had a septic tank, and so you don't wanna be putting food down your dishwasher disposal. You shouldn't be using it if you've got a septic tank. You should be composting that or putting it in the garbage if you must, but, so, yeah, I from the very beginning that I started doing it, I started putting the scraps in, and I just dug them down into it.
Okay. So my original system was to keep them in an airtight thing by the container by the kitchen, and then walk them out to the garage where I had big, orange and blue store, Home Depot or whatever, Lowe's, big buckets, dump them into that, put the cover on that. And then by the time those filled up, it was time to put them in a tumbler. So now I'm putting really disgusting anaerobic stuff into a tumbler.
Ugh,
So I know, and Marianne doesn't like that idea, and you probably don't either. Remember,
I would
this can
not
be
do
as
that.
simple this can be as simple as not putting your leaves on the curb. This could be as simple as just simply putting organic debris in your yard behind some bush and never touching it again.
But why weren't you just putting it from the sink into the compost tumbler? Why was there this middle management involved?
Oh, great question. Thank you, Mrs. Wilburn. The tumbler
Thank you.
The tumbler tumbled and sat with that junk, so picture the 5-gallon buckets being emptied in there, say there were 3 or 4 of them, plus I would go find dry material such as leaves and that kind of thing, and I would tumble it, and that would happen for another 2 or 3 weeks. On the day when I need to empty that is the day where I fill it up again, because the idea of just adding a little bit at a time, that doesn't appeal to my sensibilities of, like, "This is done." I know that that's the way it's advertised, just a
Ah,
little bit at a time,
okay.
but no, I'm constantly screwing it up so it won't get done. So I did one batch at a time. From the tumbler, it went to my true and non-food compost piles, but by that time, it was not recognizable as food, and so I would not be inviting anybody to have dinner in my yard that I did not want to be there.
I think we look at compost differently fundamentally. And that's the
Really?
reason that yeah, because I think that you look at it as something to use. And I look at it as a way to responsibly get rid of organic waste. I think it's not that I won't use it, but to me, the payback, if you will, is the fact that I am getting rid of all of this organic garbage, quote unquote, and weeds and all these things, and it's just going back into the earth. And that's enough for me. I don't now I certainly take from the compost pile, from the bottom of the compost pile, when I can or I need a little bit of extra soil, but that's not like it's funny. I mean, that it should be the ultimate goal, but it's not to me. So I would just if it was me and I had a compost tumbler and I couldn't afford one back in those days, they were like $400 and like I am not.
Really? Somebody just gave this to me because they were sick of
Oh,
it.
that was a rich gift. I remember wanting one just to have. I could put it out on the deck and just do it there, but I couldn't. So I would just keep feeding it and letting it break down and feeding it and feeding it. That's definitely how I would end up doing it, and I probably
But
end
then
up
how would it ever be done?
it'd be done enough, and then I would dump it out into a pile somewhere and just keep
And
running
let
with
it
it, I
continue
think.
on its own?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so
So
because again, my point is not the ultimate final, "Oh, thank goodness I've got this compost to use." That's the bonus. That's like eggs from chickens. Chickens are so much more about everything other than the eggs sometimes, and the eggs are like the
I
bonus.
I would just want the eggs.
Chickens are about the manure. They're also about eating all the scraps. They're about eating bugs. They're about just, I don't know, responsible land management in my mind. So the eggs are just like a big bonus to that.
Well, I think that the compost is a big bonus, but I worked to get it, and I
Yeah.
and the way so just for listeners who have not started composting, again, all you have to do is put stuff in a corner and you never have to look at it again. But if you want the humus that it'll produce, there are a couple of different ways that you can do it easily. And again, we're talking kitchen or no kitchen. You don't have to think about food if you're just talking leaves, small sticks, weeds, dead plants, all that kind of thing. And one is to have it so that you can sort of simply dig out from the bottom of it, like Marianne does, just sort of, scoot the leaves aside and just like, oh, there's some humus, and I'll just dig that out and put it in a bucket and put it someplace. My first system was a long, skinny pile, probably 15 feet long by about 4 feet wide. And I would add to one end and harvest from the other end. Now, on top of the side that I was harvesting from, there was always stuff that wasn't cooked because it was on top and it didn't achieve any heat. So I would just kick that back into the add side and keep going. So I'll put a kind of a diagram of it for YouTube so you can see, but it was basically I'm moving this way harvesting and I'm moving this way. Sorry for people who are not on YouTube. Adding, and I am constantly harvesting, and I used that compost as mulch. I didn't buy mulch. I didn't afford it. I was just like, this is my mulch.
I'm thinking you're smarter than I am, honestly, on this. I think that truly I should be using it more and thinking about it more in that respect. And that's a great way to do it. I always thought, oh, you have to have it a 3-bin system. You have to be doing it in 3 bins. And I don't have 3 bins. I just have the 1 bin. So it's just a big pile. And yeah, that you're smart. You're using your compost
Well, thank you. But then, so I moved. That was my Greenwich garden, and actually, a funny thing happened. Two funny things. One is
on the
that
way to the
that was at
forum.
on the way to the forum. That pile was at the back of the yard. There was a huge oak tree back there, and the roots would say, "Oh my God, you're building some really great stuff. I'll just go up and take it." And so I would dig, and I couldn't get my shovel in because the roots were there to say hello to me. So that was frustrating. My sister's husband came to visit one time, and he was not a man who could, like, I don't know, go to a museum with us or take a walk. He needed a project, and he was a contractor. So he built me a compost pile that like, I think it could have served for some third world housing pretty well, and it had finials. I mean, it was just so good, and it was up off the ground, and it had 2 compartments, but there was a way to sort of shove the kind of, "Okay, I can't harvest any more from this side, so I'm gonna go put that in the feed side." 3 bins is the best, and you've never done that?
No, I haven't. I did do it at the community garden that I managed for a while, and we set it up that way from the beginning, but we had lots of volunteers and a lot of guys who wanted projects, and so that was terrific. And we had a terrific lady who was really into compost, who was being very good about putting the signs on, put your waste here, use from here. And I loved that bin system, but I've never created one for myself. And then the newest vegetable garden that I have, which has been, I guess, 10 years now, I didn't make enough room for 3 bins. I made enough room for the possibility of 3 bins, and then I planted an apple tree and decided I needed an area for cold frame. So I
So your
didn't.
bins are gone. But
Yeah, my bins
now
are
so that
gone.
why would you have put it right there? Simply to be able to access it well for your raised beds?
Just to make it easy when I'm weeding in these areas, just to be able to have that. I could take it out and put it behind the fence, and yeah, I could totally do that. It was just to make it a little bit easier. I guess what we have done, listeners, is show you there are more than one way to
Oh
skin
my
this
gosh.
cat of
There's so many
composting,
ways. And I
and
hope you're not overwhelmed, but again, the simplest way to start is simply by not putting your organic debris on the street for somebody to take away. You want that yourself. Can I just tell you one more thing about the 3-bin system? I sort of just accidentally found out a really good hack for that because I went to the 3-bin system when I got to my big garden that I moved away from 2 years ago here in Charlottesville, and it was on a slight hillside. So now I'm adding to the top bin and the middle bin is sort of cooking, and I'm harvesting from the bottom bin. When it's time to flip those bins, gravity is I'm just pulling it. I'm not lifting it and taking it. I'm just pulling it. It made it so easy. And of course, you never have to flip it. You could just say, and this is, you can just say, this one looks pretty good. Oh, I have to let that cook for a little while. Oh, I'll go, I guess I'm not going to use compost. I'll use mulch this time. I mean, there's so many easy ways to do this. If you want some really good information on all the science that we are not providing for you today on purpose, We don't care. We don't know.
We're just airheads doing a podcast, drinking
Yeah,
dirty
that's right.
martinis.
Not drinking a dirty martini.
Not with the gusto of a rum punch, let me tell you.
Oh my God. It's just, are you enjoying that?
There it is again. Okay.
A little paint thinner for the soul. Amanda, who we had on the podcast right before Christmas. So she is the ever hopeful gardener. She is so into compost, and she gives some really good information on it on YouTube and mostly Instagram, I think. Oh, she's also on TikTok. She recommended somebody called Compostable Kate, who's down in, I think, Melbourne area in Australia. I was like, could I go visit Compostable Kate? But we're not going to be wherever she is. And
Jeff said, oh,
she's
yeah, that sounds like a great time, Leslie.
can't wait.
No.
So the reason that it's not important to compost, to know all the science of it, if you want to compost well, is just it'll happen. If it's anaerobic and slimy, you know that you need to add more leaves. If it's dry, you know that you need to put it so that it's exposed to rain, or if you're watering flowers and you turn the hose onto it for a minute or two, it'll really help. Putting it in the sun is an amazing thing. I always put compost in the shade because I always wanted it out of sight, behind a tree, behind a bush, under a bush. It's not a pretty thing to look at generally. But if you happen to have an opportunity to put it in some sun, wow, it really composts fast.
So it can be actually a very beautiful thing in the garden if you
Well,
treat it
I had
like
a
a
beautiful
built,
one
beautiful
with
built
finials.
structure with finials, and so it's as pretty as a raised bed and worth having. So it doesn't. You can still hide it in something very beautiful and hide it in full view. What about activators? Do you use artificial or non-artificial organic activators in there, like chicken manure or like bought activators to make your
No,
compost start to heat up?
no. Well, no and yes. Mostly no. I would never do that because, like you, I don't like to spend money except on plants. And so compost is compost. It's going to do its thing. And
Yes.
it'll happen eventually, and I'm never in a hurry. There are people who, get one of those long thermometers, and they want it to turn around in 3 or 4 months, and that is what makes them happy. I am not one of those people. So, no activators until I move to a townhouse, and all of a sudden, I cannot deal with the fact that I'm putting garbage in the garbage, and I have to do something. So, from Amanda, the ever hopeful gardener, I learned that system called bokashi composting. Do you know anything about that?
I do not, other than what you have told me, and I have tried to forget because I need my brain for hellebores and snowdrops. But please do tell us. Do tell us about bokashi. I can't wait. I'm on the edge of my seat.
I can tell you are. All right. So it's just, nobody has to be in this situation unless you're in this situation because you're not allowed to have a compost pile in a HOA townhouse. Right? You're just not allowed to. So
I had
gotta
illegal
figure out.
chickens, so I did everything illegally until they made me stop. So
Oh, I totally have a compost pile.
until you're thrown in. Okay.
But I do have a compost pile, but it actually is in a beautiful, huge terracotta pot. It's like you could put several children in this pot. It's so big. And people would just say, isn't that a pretty pot? And they have no idea that there's an old pumpkin sitting in there amongst other things. But
So
before
smart.
I knew my system here, I did try the bokashi. And so you can make your own bins. And Amanda, the ever hopeful gardener, has a YouTube on that. And that's, the Lowe's or Home Depot buckets. But no, I was impatient. So I just bought some things from, including activators from Amazon. And so I did it and I did it and I did it for 6 or 7 months. And the idea was the activator would make it so that you could then take take your kitchen scraps and then you could dig those, whatever was going to happen after 3 months, into the ground. You still don't have compost after 3 months. So yeah, Marianne's never going to do it. And you can understand why I stopped. I did not have any place to dig it in. As you're dealing with it from the full bucket to whatever bin it was, I'm like, okay, well, I'll just put it in a bigger bin over here. It smelled so bad. My little room to work, which is not freezing in the basement, is where the air handler is. And so everything that I was doing in that room made the whole house stink. And my
I think this would be a great idea, Jeff.
dear sweet husband, he put the hammer down.
Oh.
So I cannot tell you that I recommend bokashi composting. It didn't work for me
You did show me yours,
when you visited.
a year ago when I visited, and maybe it was a little more than that, and, you took me down deep into and showed me your shame.
It was awful. I
Yeah,
couldn't do it.
and all I could think was, "Yeah, just have a pile, just, do what you're doing and keep putting it into the terracotta," and
But I can't put food into the terracotta. I'm not doing that. I will get rats.
Right.
So, again, if you're new to composting, if you're considering composting, maybe you don't do the food thing if you can't figure out the food thing. Now, I figured out the food thing, but it's not really real because I use the loamy, and I am not making compost in that loamy. I am making dehydrated, not smelly food to put into my compost. So it's helping me to not put garbage in the garbage, but it's not as good as chickens or real composting or the stuff that I was doing before. It's very easy to compost. I think it's a little bit tricky to kitchen scrap compost. I do.
Hmm. Yeah, and to be fair, I grew up, in the country, if you didn't already figure that one out, and I live in the country, and so it is a little bit easier, and I often hear people say, "Oh, well, don't put meat scraps or fat into your compost or you'll get rats." And I think no matter what you put into your compost, you would get rats if you had rats around. They're going to eat little bits of cauliflower and they're going to eat little bits of carrots. They want lots of different things, especially in the winter. So and do we have rats here? We've had them occasionally with my chickens when they started to find out that there was a food source and I hadn't set my Jack Russell on them. But I hadn't noticed them in the compost pile. I've never noticed that. But I would give my scraps to the chickens in the morning so that by the time that the day was done, there were no food scraps sitting outside because they'd already eaten all of them. So you have to be a little bit smart about that.
Yeah. And again, I did that thing where I'm sort of putting off the food scraps, making them turn into this anaerobic slushy stuff. And then by the time they're out in the open, they are not recognizable as food. This is a big deal, so it's not
Yeah.
for everybody. This Lomi idea might help you if you don't like to put garbage in the garbage, but, it's an expensive little machine. I think they're making them less expensive and bigger all the time.
And it's
Um,
not just Lomi, there are other brands because when I was looking into them, I had a brief moment after the chicken massacre of 2025. I had a brief moment where I thought maybe a Lomi instead of going and digging in my scraps and then keeping the dogs off of it and all that. I looked into them for a while and I thought no, because as soon as I've got the chickens back, I I'm not going to want it
yeah.
anymore. It'll become like an expensive bread machine. It's sort of, oh gosh, do I want it that badly? Trying to go back to that value that you're getting for something. But I think that in your situation and for a lot of people in apartments, it solves a lot of problems. And you're getting nutrient rich, nitrogen rich stuff to put in the soil. We should actually talk about the nutritive benefits of compost and the not benefits of compost, or how do you say that? It may not be as great as you think it is, right?
You did some research on this, and you got my attention because you said, people think, "Oh, I've gotta feed my plants, let me get the compost," and it's not as simple as that. It's not quite as nutritious as you think. It's great, it's good, but tell us the scoop.
Yeah, I've heard this from lots of different sources, and I just said it to another friend of mine he was stopping putting the really cool organic uh, mix of fertilizer on his beds, which give him incredible yield. And that's I think it's Steve Solomon blend, which is like bone meal and blood meal and fish meal and all these different things. And he has had incredible yields with that on his beds. And he was stopping that because he said, my compost is really ready. So I'm going to use that. And I said, you're not going to get the same amount of value as you are getting with your fertilizer, just so you understand that. And also, people's compost varies. What you're getting from compost, first and foremost, is rich organic material, micronutrients that are very natural. You're getting bacteria, you're getting mycorrhizal growth. That's not the right word.
Isn't it?
You're getting fungus. different little creatures that we cannot see. They're there that are hard to get from a bag. And you're getting a soil enricher, a conditioner that allows the worms to work easier and better and gives them something to, little bits of things that haven't yet been composted and they go through. So you're getting all of that and you're getting some nutritive the big guys, the NPK, the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potash.
I guess I thought that it was more nitrogen than anything else and carbon, but where does the PK come from? Do you know?
Because everybody's compost makeup is different, those numbers vary.
Okay.
And they're gonna be varied for you. But I pulled this up from University of Georgia Extension from Paul Puglisi, who said, and because I thought it said it so well. Compost is not a substitute for fertilizer if you're trying to grow crops that have a high nutrient demand. The real value of adding composted amendments to your soil is to loosen the soil, minimize compaction, improve the drainage and aeration of clay soils, and increase the nutrient holding capacity of your soil and the water retentive
Right.
capacity of your soil. And I, like I said, I would add the trace micronutrients as well. And then it just provides food for your beneficial microorganisms and your earthworms to thrive. So don't think of it as fertilizer. Think of it as soil conditioner with a bonus.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Soil building, so if you have sandy soil, it makes it better. If you have
Yes.
clay soil, it makes it better. It just makes everything better. I think that's really good information, though, to not think, "Oh, it's so good that it'll actually feed my plants." No, I mean, yes, but not as much as you would think.
Right, even manures, thing like the cattle manure that you get in bags, if you do that, which is filled with salt, so don't do that. But if you do, that doesn't add that much nutrients to the soil. Something like green chicken manure adds a lot of nitrogen to your soil, but you don't want to do that. You want to compost it first. So do a little bit of research on that. I hate that. Oh, do your own research. But truly, look into that a little bit more because you may want to supplement with a really lovely balanced or organic fertilizer.
I have a question for you in terms of the chickens. I really wanted chickens, and I knew that I knew that I couldn't get them, and certainly not now. But I so wanted them. They were so good for so many reasons, and I knew from what I had read that they were the best manure that could be.
Very high nitrogen.
Is that why? And that's
Very high
it?
nitrogen, yeah, and rabbit manure as well is too. And I bet you could have a couple rabbits. So why don't you go ahead and put your money where your mouth is, Harris?
Oh, I go on too many vacations now.
Yeah,
Sorry.
aha! The truth comes out. The dirty, dirty truth comes out.
I used to be more sedentary and hardworking, but no, not anymore.
Yeah, they
Um,
are high, but you cannot take that manure and put it into your soil.
no.
For me, what I do with my chicken manure is I let those chickens scratch it around in the run. And they scratch it in with the dirt and the scraps I'm giving them and the weeds and all of the stuff. And by the time I shovel up that soil, it's really very, very well mixed, very diluted, and it's broken down quite a bit because I take all the stuff from the chicken coop and throw it out into the run
And
twice a year.
so what do you do with that? You can't put it right on your garden. You put it
Oh,
into
I
the
use
compost
it.
pile?
No, when it's soil like that, I use it.
Okay.
Now, when I had ducks in the duck house, I would take out their straw and manure mix, and that would go on the compost pile because
Okay.
I needed it to break down. I needed it to mix up because it was just too green. But the chickens do a lot of that mixing for me in their run with the soil, so I can use that soil and I don't have any problems with it. But just do know that even though it's a great activator. You were talking about buying activators. If you have a friend with some chickens, ask if you can maybe just get a big bucket of their manure. If you've got somebody who's got urban chickens or that type of
To add
thing,
it to your
they might
pile.
want to get rid of it. Maybe they're not a gardener. I have friends who have chickens who are not gardeners.
Oh, well. Crazy.
Weirdos.
Uh,
Okay, so they'll never listen to this.
I just want to mention chop and drop because the
Oh my god, not chop and drop.
tips and
Okay,
tricks, chop
yes,
and
I'm
drop.
sorry. What was that, Leslie?
I no, it is a real thing. And again, we're trying to convince people to do this thing.
So is carpal tunnel.
That is not on topic. Behave.
It
Um,
is.
no, I guess it is. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that
Yeah,
way.
it
Never mind.
is. I guess it is.
You don't have to chop that much. I'm just saying that it just seems kind of funny to make all this fuss about taking your organic debris to a place and then a few months later taking it right back to the place whence it came. So, if you, depending on your standards for cleanliness and depending on the situation, if you got a handful of weeds or, trimmings or whatever that you were going to take elsewhere and you could stuff them under a bush, that's a little compost pile right there. I mean, if it offends your eye, of course, don't do it. Take it away. It depends on your level of neatness. But don't be afraid to feed the soil just a couple of inches deep all over your yard, depending on where you want it. I have it all over the hillside on top of my retaining wall. And because I live in an HOA, and we all pay for these guys to come and do the mow and blow, I don't let them on my yard except when it's mulching time, and they're coming with their double shredded hardwood bark, and they will cover up all my not very pretty mulch, which is my
Uh,
chop and drop situation, and it'll be beautiful by the time I see it next because they will cover up, and meanwhile, what I put there is really feeding the soil. What they put there will eventually break down and feed the soil, but it's gonna be a nice, neat look, just saying.
I'm comfortable with your version of chop and drop. I'm not comfortable with the very cutesy Instagram version of chop and drop where you've got a lot of young, strapping, supplely jointed interns chopping up 4-inch pieces of perennial stems into buckets to then throw around in the garden, and then you're putting that out for everybody over 40 to do, because carpal tunnel is real, man. And even if it's not carpal tunnel, it's arthritis. And no matter how ergonomic your secateurs are, it can really, that kind of motion over and over and over again to cut up a stem that you could have just whacked at the bottom and thrown onto a compost pile that is a long-term compost pile, which takes a long time for your woodies to break down. Then, anyway, I'm a little sensitive.
I think you are. With your huge property, could you please explain to us the difference that you may or may not have between a true compost pile and a debris pile? And have you ever done a burn pile? So
Oh,
what's
yeah,
going
I've
on over
got
there?
all of those things.
Okay.
So I have my compost pile, which is in just a small compost pile in my vegetable garden, which gets the kitchen scraps right now, and it gets little weeds that are in the vegetable garden. Doesn't get a lot of woody stuff.
Okay.
I have a leaf mold pile, which I'm constantly trying to get my husband to please just dump the leaves there and not I mean, he's doing the right thing. He's chopping them up as he mows the lawn. And so it goes back and it feeds that grass. So it's not a bad thing, but I just want more leaves.
Yeah.
Then I also have a very large berm, which is all of that larger stuff that I'm not chopping dropping. I am just I'm taking like the banana that I
Yeah.
just cut down, and that goes on there, or stems from an echinacea, or just a bunch of
Sticks?
yeah,
Like, where do sticks go?
small
Okay.
sticks. And then I have another area that I'm starting to build a new hugel culture in, and that gets the bigger sticks, the larger pieces of wood, and and a little bit of debris. It depends on if I'm actively building a hugel culture, which I am doing right now again. So I've got a lot of different piles going on, and I do have a bonfire. I do have a bonfire because there are things that I just don't feel like doing any of those things to. We have brought that way down, so we don't have to burn very much at all. But there's still some things that are just easier to burn. And it's also nice to have a summer bonfire.
Yeah.
Summer bonfire, fall bonfire. It's not often. It's like once a year, and maybe twice a year if we can get our our proverbial together to
Okay.
to do
All
it.
right.
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean,
So I
that's a
do
big
all of them.
property. I've only ever managed, just short of an acre. So 11 acres, you would have different piles. I did have on my bigger garden, dead hedges. So these are sticks that are just not going to break down in my compost pile, and I'll be shifting them from bin to bin to bin for the next few years. So instead, let's put them over here and start to make this dead hedge, which will, I was kind of sad. I was very sad to leave this property. And that was one of the reasons I wanted to see this go on. But when I went back to tour my garden, when was that? In the fall. They were adding to and expanding more successfully than I had ever done that dead hedge. It looked very cool. And of course, it was just feeding the soil as the wood broke down at the bottom. So a dead hedge is another thing. You can make designs, you can make nests like Marianne does in her woods. I was trying to make a boat about 7 feet long that was barely recognizable. But you can also just, take these pieces of wood and have your husband give a whack to them and put them in your fireplace. But try not to have them sent to a local landfill. It'd be great to avoid that methane gas, you know?
It, and it's nice if you can avoid the carbon going off into the soil and sequester that carbon right there on your property. With those nests, with those dead hedges. That's the last way that I have piles, so to speak, are those habitat nests, which are just filled with beetles and they're filled with fungi and filled with all sorts of wonderful things, and they're artistic as well. So just depending on where I am on the property is what I'm going to be doing with the stuff that I have. Sometimes it doesn't make a lot of sense to move it all the way from one end to the other, and sometimes it does.
And so it's fun to think that in this episode, during which we have not had the normal
So
amount of chuckles,
dry. We need
it's
to
so
add some
dry.
nitrogen to
We need
our
to add some nitrogen. But so
some
Marianne has this
activator.
huge property, and I am trying to figure out this tiny property, but literally my Lomi is very much helping me because I'm not putting garbage in the garbage. And then I have a 3.5 foot by 2.5 foot terracotta pot that is my compost pile. The sad part is that there's not bin one and bin two. It's like, okay, it's getting kind of full. I guess I get my trugs and I just sort of bend over and scoop up the top part, which is so not ready to come out. And then the unfortunate reality of the bottom of that pot is that it has a drainage hole that's built into picture a little hillside. So there's always a puddle of water. So the bottom foot of
Oh.
that stuff is just disgusting, anaerobic wet. So I'm like, again, it's really good exercise. I'm bending over, I'm lifting it out, I empty it, I put the not humusy stuff. And humus is, I'm using that term loosely because, again, this is kind of gloppy stuff. I put the not cooked stuff down into the bottom, but it works for me. I just don't want to send stuff to a landfill because that is going to emit methane gas, which is a greenhouse gas.
Well, I think you should get a prize for your efforts. Because
Okay.
my gosh, and that's not a participation trophy either, Leslie. It's
I'm
like
working at
you
it.
should
I'm
get a
working at it.
prize for your efforts because I
I've
mean,
tried everything.
I know a lot of people who are green as hell, and they're the ones who are protesting, and they're doing this and shooting off their mouth about everything. And then you say, "Hey, do you have a compost pile?" No. Do you hang your clothes out? No. Do all these different things? Do you try and make it work? Like, okay, here's the crazy thing. When we lived in London, I couldn't hang my clothes out there. I didn't have a garden. I went up into the attic and I had clotheslines up there. And I used to I had a little one in diapers, and so I had long rows of diapers up in the attic and doing all that. And of course, I was also 27,
A little more energy.
a little more energy. But I mean, you can live what you believe, and a compost pile is one of the first ways to live that instead of just talking about it. Yeah, you live that, and I really respect that, even though I
Thanks.
love to make fun of you.
I know you
All
do.
right, let's talk about the little dirty secrets of composting. There are a couple. I just recently did an article on this on Garden Rant.
Mhm.
And one of them we just talked about is that people's bins are often too small
Mm.
on their
Their
countertop
kitchen
because they're
sink, yeah.
yeah, because you go and say I need a compost bin, let me go get one on Amazon. Now this is not going to stop me linking to one on Notes, Links and Laughs, but you may find that they're just woefully small. So maybe get a really attractive pot that you can. They have lids too. A friend of mine has got an old crock, which is so beautiful. And then there's a plastic sort of suctiony lid that she's gotten completely separately. I'll look for that as well and link it. That just goes on the top of that. And it makes the size that she wants rather than the little tiny thing, which just makes you annoyed. The other thing,
I
oh,
would wait. The little tiny thing which makes you annoyed, it really does work. The ice cream, half-gallon ice cream things or quart, I don't know what they are. They're not very big. I mean, if I make a good-sized salad, 1 is full, but I have 2 or 3 going, and I go to empty them 2 or 3 at a time, and they're
Mhm.
sealed, and there are no bugs, and yes, they're small, but I just have 2 or 3 at a time, and it's pretty easy.
yeah. So adapt that. Don't just say, okay, this isn't working because of this one container. The other thing is fruit flies. Do you want to have some comments on that? Because boy, I can.
We call them pets in my household.
Some pets.
We name them. We're like,
Wow.
"Look, oh, look,
Wow.
they're back. Isn't it great? Honey, look." Yes, the pets, I tried your method. I do get them occasionally because of the compost or whatever else mistake I've made. "Oh my god, what is that tomato doing in the bottom of the fruit
Mhm.
bowl when it's really black and mushy?" We make mistakes in the kitchen, and so you get these pets. Marianne has a system of a long, skinny, vinegar bottle. No, was
Vinegar
it?
bottle. Yeah.
Yeah. That didn't seem to work for me,
But
so
you didn't put
I
the top on it, did you? You took the
but the
top
yeah, but then
off
I
of it.
fashioned something. I fashioned a piece of tin foil that makes it
Oh,
so,
okay.
yes, a fruit fly could get down there, but it wouldn't easily come out. Didn't seem to do it for me, so unfortunately, I was a victim of advertising, and perhaps you can provide a link for this. I got some little cute red plastic apple-shaped, I don't know what, from Amazon that
Oh,
for
I had some of those
$5.
years ago.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that worked. I could see them all on the bottom. It was very satisfying.
Or the really pretty glass ones, which also sometimes work for hornets and things. All those usually are bigger, and the fruit flies go in the bottom of the glass, sort of almost looking like a beehive, and you have vinegar or red wine in it, and they drown in there. They can't get back out, and then you empty it out. So there are a lot of different ways to deal with the fruit flies. Can I tell you about my most latest ridiculous pets episode?
By the way, can I just say before you start that you have a pet flying around in back of you? I don't know if
Oh,
it's a stink bug or something,
no,
but we've seen
and
it
that is
4 or 5
several
times.
times. Okay,
Yeah.
that's why I'm telling you about it. It is a pet, and it's a shameful pet. It is a moth. It is a grain moth, and here's why it's in my house along with about 16,000 of its friends, because I'm such a frugal person.
Family
It's so
members, probably.
ridiculous.
I think they're related, actually.
Yes. Well, when we had the chicken massacre back in, I don't even know when it was, September or so, I had just bought some really good quality chicken grain that I get down the road from a farmer, and this is good stuff. I mean, you want to eat this stuff.
No, I don't. I don't want my cocktail either. I'm like, "What am I gonna do with this?"
I don't know. I'm trying to get through mine. Here's another sip. Hold on, hold on. Fortifying. Whew. The olives would be good though. Anyway, I had one extra really big bag of this, and it had a hole in the bag, and the mice were starting to get into it in the potting shed. So I brought it up and put it into a garbage bag, intending to, you know, bring it back down to the potting shed later, which would have been dumb, but just all put together. Well, I forgot about it. I just let it sit downstairs. Well, anybody who runs a feed store can tell you that there are thousands of grain moth eggs in anything, and weevils and all that sort of thing. And we started seeing these little moths all over. Like there's one, there he is. Hello. Hi. So, we started seeing this, and I'm going, "What is going on here? Are these are these wool moths? Where are they from?" And I go, and all of a sudden, I twigged and thought, "Wait a minute, let me go down and look at that bag." I went down to the bag, opened it, and just
Teeming. Yeah, they all in
and
your nose. Oh god, yeah.
And normally, if I have any moths that have gotten in the house because I left windows open or something late at night, I have a bug zapper that I use inside only at night to get them, just for if I have a lot, like I left a window open all night type thing. They're not attracted to the light. But what I have found they are very attracted to is a small, like an inch of wine in a bottom of glass. And so I
Oh,
have little half inches of wine in glasses all over the house, almost in every single room.
does it tempt you?
No,
And you're like, "Oh, there's some texture to this.
but
Mm."
if somebody was coming to my house to stay and I forgot about these, they would think that I am the biggest closet alcoholic that ever lived. And I'm not so closet because I'm on the garden mixer. So,
And
Anyway,
she's eating her olives.
and I'm eating my
I'll try
olives.
the olives.
So, yeah, don't bring grain into the house. And that's what you get for being too frugal. And they always say, penny wise, pound foolish, right? All right, back to these dirty secrets and
Even
my
the olive is
pets.
bad, I gotta tell you.
The olive was not good either.
Oh,
This
I
just was
love
a big
olives.
fail. Page 156, we need to burn that one.
Exit out.
Um, here's just a little bit of philosophy that I want to share. I am very punctilious, as we have established, and I tend to see a lot of things as zero sum, which is not a good or healthy thing. And that means that if I'm making a lot of effort in one space in my life, and then it's undone in another space, particularly with money or economically, I look at it as undoing the work that I've done here. If I've saved a lot of money here and then stupid money is spent over here, then it's like, well, what was the point of doing this? My brain just works that way, and it's allowed us to live on one income for a very long time and finally get some property, right? So there's good things about it. But the bad thing is, when it comes to compost, I wanted everybody to compost and look at compost and putting scraps into the garbage exactly the same way that I did. And every single time that a child would throw an apple core into the garbage and not think, or my husband would scrape off the contents of the plate into the garbage, it used to make me crazy. Like, why am I even bothering to do all this if you're, doing this? And somehow I finally came to the conclusion, probably a friend who usually pulls me up on this sort of stuff, um, that it's not a zero sum game. Every single thing that you put into that compost bucket is one less thing that went into your garbage can and went into the landfill. And so the more you do, the better it is. Every load of laundry that you hang out on a line is one less that your dryer dried, the electricity was used. That's the way to look at this stuff, is not as I have to do everything all the time.
And that's a great lesson because it goes back to the idea that there are so many ways to make chili, raise children,
Yeah.
and compost. And do not let perfect get in the way of just giving it a go. If even it
Amen.
has nothing to do with kitchen scraps because you don't wanna deal with moths, well, or pets of any kind, just give it a go to not send things to a landfill. Give it a go. Give it a go.
Yeah.
And ask us questions.
Comments at thegardenmixer.com. Yeah,
Yeah.
send us your
And
your thoughts about that. Well, I think we have dug this hole deep enough for our compost, don't you?
absolutely. A little bit of housekeeping before we move on to Damn, I Wish I Planted That. And one is that we got a really good comment from Kathy Purdy, who is a founding mixer. She thanks Marianne for being punctilious, and she thanks me for not being punctilious. She loves the yin and the yang of this podcast. And that, thank you very much. And the other one that I wanted to point out was Miss Daisy. She sent a photo of fun things that she got from Santa Claus. She sent it on Substack, our chat there. And she got the following things from Santa Claus. She got Marianne's book on tropical plants and how to love them. She got, this might drive Marianne crazy, she got a soil knife. Hey, Team Soil Knife, go, go, go. She got Okatsune pruners, secateurs,
Wow.
and then a belt and I think maybe, I don't know, holsters or something. It looked like a good haul. So congratulations to you, Miss Daisy.
She's
Do you have
got
any new
somebody paying
mixers?
attention to
All
her
right.
wants. I often think that the lists that you see at Christmas time that say gifts for gardeners should really be gifts from gardeners, because nobody who's not a gardener is reading those lists and saying, "Oh, what can I get my gardening spouse?" It's more about what you want to get yourself.
Yeah. Well, she obviously informed Santa very well.
And we have got some new mixers, both from the end of last year and the end of the season, which we always are putting those on the notes, links, and laughs, but we try and shout them out here too. So if you don't hear your name, you will see it on the notes, links, and laugh, hopefully one or two times. We have Tanya Smith, Sue W., Miss Pat, Lindsay B., Erica Whiteman, Vicki Gillis, Jen Pruden, and Jeffrey Feltman. Welcome to the Garden Mixer. One more sip committed community.
And I hope you like mixers just as much as we do, because we're not enjoying this just booze thing.
No, I think you still have a little bit more than I do, but yeah, that was a
but
fail.
I finished my Chardonnay. Hey, if you do listen to One More Sip of the Garden Mixer, you will know from our January 2nd edition that Marianne and I both have big things going on personally in our gardens. We're just going to have a 1 to 2 sentence update about them. Marianne with her deer fence, and me getting rid of my front lawn and adding a new garden. My update is I had to nudge my landscape guys because they're the ones who are going to make the plan for the steps to present to the HOA committee that I hope will pass my idea. So I am basically nowhere, but I hope to be able to report more in 2 weeks. And you with your deer fence?
My deer fence has just opened up my brain. I think that's the best way to say it. It allows me to now fall asleep at night thinking about planting combinations that always had the filter of, oh, yeah, but, yeah, but. And that has made me feel like I'm 25 again in my new garden. And, it's a very, very cool, it's a very cool thing. We haven't gotten the gate electrified yet. So that's a bit of a pain in the butt in winter, having to open that up and close it and pull the car forward and close it and go up there for any mail and packages and all that sort of stuff that used to come down the driveway.
Yeah.
But it is pretty fabulous. I think it's just a mind-opening experience. No deer on the inside yet. We're sure it's gonna happen. It'll absolutely happen. Hopefully, Michael
Oh,
will have
yeah.
his rifle, when it does happen.
Venison stew, baby.
Can I just put something real quick on your big project? 'Cause
Yeah.
I know that we're gonna have listeners that are in HOAs, and we're gonna have listeners who are not in HOAs, and we're gonna have listeners who would never dream of being in an HOA. And, um, I wanted to just say that, yes, when you're in HOA, it makes it harder to do the kind of jobs that Leslie is doing, pulling out the lawn, putting the perennial bed in. And you're gonna have to go through some hoops to show these people that maybe you don't even have any respect for. You're gonna have to stand up in front of them and tug your forelock and say, "Please," and "Thank you," and "Here's my beautiful plan, you ignoramus," and all these things.
How did you know what I was thinking?
Yeah. So I don't want our listeners to think that we're just like, oh, it's so great. Leslie gets to stand in front of the HOA and just plead for her garden, because that makes my blood boil. Let me just tell you. However, it is absolutely essential for her to be able to do this, to go through that process. And in my first book, Big Dreams, Small Gardens, I profiled a gardener who did exactly what Leslie is doing. And because she did that, she has a beautiful garden in front of her house that she wouldn't have otherwise. And she worked with her local nursery to help her put that plan together to give it a little bit more oomph. And she also joined the Master Gardener program, which is how I met her, in order to, again, put a little bit of credential behind it. So it's worthwhile, even if you're feeling like they shouldn't be able to do that. Well, they can. And that's what you signed up for. And this is what you have to do.
Oh, yeah, it's a great neighborhood. I'm glad to be here, but you just got to jump through the hoops. All right. Hang on a tick for damn, I wish I had planted that.
All right, damn, I wish I'd planted that. The part of the show where we talk about plants that you're going to plan to have in your garden this time next year because they just look so damn good in somebody else's garden. Leslie, what is yours this week for the end of February?
It looks good in my garden, but it looks better in other people's garden who have bigger ones. This is the Acuba japonica, which is a broadleaf evergreen from Asia. The common name, which I've never heard before, is the spotted laurel. I just think even my mother, who was no sort of gardener at all, she could spit off Akuba japonica, Akuba japonica. Like, I think she enjoyed saying it, and she had a
Hakuna
big stand of
Matata.
it.
Hakuna Matata.
Exactly.
Akuba japonica.
Can get about 10 feet tall, maybe even taller if it's really happy, and almost that wide. It has small purple flowers that I don't think I have ever witnessed. Have you?
No, what is the word for that? There's a word for it, like not indiscriminate, in something. Doesn't matter.
In not within our view. I mean, I guess they're really small, but it's a dioecious plant, and so maybe I've never had the male to do the dirty deed to make those flowers appear.
Well, they
I
both have to have
have
flowers in order for it to
mm,
happen. Yeah.
right, right. So, yeah, anyway, I've only ever
Indistinct?
had
Is that right? There's a
in
word.
there's a word.
Comments at the Garden Mixer. Tell us what the
It's
word is.
not it's not incongruous, we figured that one. Um, they make red berries later on. This is a plant so it's a shrub. It loves partial shade to full shade. And if you put it in full sun, you'll be a little bit sad because it will be a little bit sad and crispy, especially the new leaves. It tolerates clay. It tolerates heat. It tolerates drought. It tolerates deer. Not to say that deer won't nibble at it. They will if they're truly, truly hungry, but they won't go for it, first, second, or third. The
Wait,
leaves, what?
I must protest. Akuba japonica is total deer candy in my garden. It's one of the
Well,
things I'm
you live
excited
in a
about now.
weirdo place. It's an
All
A
right.
on the Rutgers list.
Well,
It's an
Rutgers can kiss
A
my.
on the Rutgers. You just take a time out, get yourself together, and let me talk about my plan. Stand down. Um, Deer should not go for it as quickly as Marianne thinks they will. The leaves are this really cool kind of medium green. It's a strong, pretty green, and they're kind of toothed, but they're not like spiky, not like holly leaves. They're soft. But the best thing about them is this green, this beautiful green, is covered with yellow dots. I mean, it's just like, wait, what? It's a leopard plant. It's beautiful. It is so easy to propagate by cuttings, and I have used it in floral arrangements. And then when I go to dismantle that thing, because something else has failed me, the Cuba japonica A still looks good, and B has probably rooted because it propagates that easily. So that's a softwood cutting if I've cut off the tip, but I read that hardwood cuttings, medium wood cuttings on this plant can be propagated really easily. So it keeps forever, even in a wreath. So you haven't supplied the water that you would in a floral arrangement. You're just hanging it out to dry at the front door. And it's like, yep, I'll be good for about 2 weeks here. I'm just going to be one of those plasticky looking plants that looks good. It's a waxy, shiny leaf, and I guess that protects it somehow. Akuba japonica, it's a great, because it's evergreen, it's a great privacy hedge. It is not a native, which is too bad, but it's very interesting looking and it's a very useful plant. So damn, what you got?
I can't add anything. Can I add something to your Yakuba? Because it doesn't have to
Damn,
be.
what are you gonna say? You always have something to say.
I just have something to say. The
I know.
Akuba japonica doesn't have to be your grandmother's Akuba because it is thought of as a very common shrub. And there are
No, it's common.
many, many cool cultivars. I grow
Oh,
Picturata, which has a green leaf with a very large yellow splash in the middle of it with a few little yellow dots. I
oh
grow
yeah.
Night and Day. I grow a Japanese one that I cannot remember, and I also grow sulphurus, which is much more yellow.
Oh, cool.
Now I also grew 2 others until the deer ate them. So
Sorry.
it is a really great plant, and I've made a lot of cuttings from and given away a lot of cuttings because I know they're going to root for people. Just put them in some water.
Wait, are they patented plants and you will be going to jail shortly?
I can neither confirm nor deny any of that. Actually, no, they
All right.
weren't patented, as far as I know. All right. Mine is, sorry for you, Leslie, snowdrops. It's gonna be snowdrops today. And listeners,
Can
I know.
I just need to set
No,
up the
you can do
listeners.
nothing. You can sit
Yes, I
down,
can.
shut up,
You hush.
and listen
No.
to the snowdrops.
When we got to winter of our first season of this podcast, all she could talk about was this plant. I'm like, Hello, this is not the Galanthus podcast. This is a lot of different plants. So here we go. We're on season 2 and she's revving up. Okay, go
I
ahead.
I am not a galanthophile. Honest to God, I'm not. But I think that this is a tremendous bulb for beginners to get started with sooner rather than later, just with a handful. Nancy Goodwin, who is one of the best known galanthophiles in North Carolina, she had a Montrose garden down there, who had a small nursery with rare galanthus in it. She started out with 20 bought from southern states from the feed
Oh, wow.
store. That's where her collection came from. And it's just about dividing and planting, dividing and planting, dividing and planting. So as those plants get just a little bit bigger and you can pull the bulbs apart, then planting as onesies, and it's exponential. It happens really quick. So my damn I wish I planted it is not to go into all the details, which I'd love to do,
I know.
of galanthus. It's more to encourage you to, in about a month's time, as the snowdrops around you and in your friends' gardens and in your own garden maybe are starting to die back and they're starting to yellow, then to dig up some of those clumps and start to divide them around your garden and in different
Couldn't be
areas.
couldn't be any more satisfying or quick. You stick your shovel under the clump. You push it up. You divide it into 2 or 3. You put one right back if you liked it there, and then you just do 2 others as neighbors. It's just so fun.
It is. And think about that sort of high-low density in terms of don't put them out as regimented militaristic soldiers. Put them in one here, one there, one over here. And remember, they're going to make these little clumps for you. And think about varying the timing. So as we're moving through the winter and we're getting to the end of February now, if you're seeing some of the later ones come up, maybe you want some of those as well as some of the ones in December. So maybe you need to have some little flags to put around of the things you want to divide. So it's just to put galanthus on your radar. I will try not to talk about them from this point moving into March,
Anybody wanna take any bets on that?
even though I'm going to be going to Tim Calkin's garden. Yeah, I'm actually visiting one of our founding mixers' gardens for a galanthus tour and luncheon. So I'm looking forward to that very, very much. I may have already done it by this time. See, look at my calendar. But yes, galanthus. You don't have to be an expert. This is a plant that really you will be so thankful that you put it in earlier rather than later.
All right, you good people, thanks for your patience. This went on a little bit long, and it just again, with the compost, just do the very, very simple basic stuff and learn what you can learn and see what you can see, and just keep your good stuff on your own property, and that's just the way to start. Good luck.
Good luck, and we will see you next time.